tonight is Wednesday, June 2nd, and this is the Hendrick Hudson School Board of Education meeting. Hang on one sec. There we go. One of my buttons was asking to consent to be recorded. If you haven't heard by now, we were planning on having this to be our first in-person board meeting in a while. Unfortunately, the internet service to the district at the moment is down, so we are going to need to be fully remote again tonight. So I apologize for that. That does necessitate some reconfiguration of our public comment section as well. We're going to collapse both public comment sections, or actually we're just going to eliminate the first one, the non-agenda items section. And we will only be having a public comment section tonight for agenda items, which you can email into Carmen. If you have comments that you were wanting to present tonight to us live, please hold on to those till the next meeting, and hopefully we'll be able to accommodate you. Okay. Can I get a motion to open the meeting, please? Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So tonight we'll be going into our executive session. The executive session will convene for the purpose of collective negotiations under the Taylor Law, medical, financial, credit, or employment history of a particular person or corporation, or matters leading to the appointment or employment history of a particular person or corporation, or matters leading to the appointment or employment or promotion or demotion or discipline or suspension or removal of a particular person or corporation. Can I have a motion to move into exec, please?
So second.
And thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So to the public, we will be back at approximately between 7 and 7:15. And we will see you on our computer screens then. Thanks. Okay, very good. Good evening. Tonight is Wednesday, June 2nd. We had planned on this being our first in-person meeting in quite a while. Unfortunately, the internet had other ideas. We are having internet connection issues. So like everything else during the school year, we have had to pivot, and we will be fully remote tonight. That also means that we have had to cancel our audience comments on non-agenda items. Since it was too late to try to organize getting people to come into the Zoom meeting in person. So please hold on to those comments for the next meeting for June 16th. We definitely want to see you and hear you, hopefully in person at the next meeting. We will still have non-agenda items that you can email to Carmen during the meeting, and she will read them for you. Okay, so the board has just left our executive session and we are back in public session. Can we have the Pledge of Allegiance, please, to start our meeting?
Please stand as we recite the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated.
Thank you very much. That was lovely. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda as stated?
So moved.
Can I get a second, please?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Does anybody have anything that they would like to pull from the consent agenda tonight? Okay, can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda as stated?
So moved.
Can I get a
Second.
second, please? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. So there were a couple of items that were removed from our consent agenda this evening. They are all donations, and nice ones at that. We had some music donations last week, or last meeting, I should say. This time it looks like we have some sports donations, which is fabulous. So our first donation is a donation for 2 goal setter MVP basketball system hoops. The district has received this donation in the amount of $6,415.98 from the Buchanan Verplank PTA for 2 goal setter MVP basketball system hoops for the BV Elementary School. Thank you very, very much for all of your fundraising efforts to the PTA. I'm sure the kids will love playing with these. Our second donation is for the Clara Montague Memorial Football Scholarship. The district has received a donation in the amount of $600 from the Cortland Contracting Company. Thank you very much to the Cortland Contracting Company for this very generous donation. And the third donation is a donation totaling $500 from Mark Bartolini family for the Hendrick Hudson football program. So again, another very generous donation. Thank you so much for that. Can I get a motion to approve these donations?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, let me shuffle my papers here for a minute. I was all set to be in the boardroom. Okay. So that brings us to our audience comment section on non-agenda items, which we are skipping this evening. So that will bring us to our superintendent's report tonight.
Yeah, I'm going to go a little out of order, and we're actually going to end with an update on the American Rescue Plan funds. So I will start with end of year calendar. Our end of year calendar has been posted. A number of adjustments from years past, particularly if you are a high school student. We're sorry, high school students, but because there are not as many Regents exams, you will be receiving instruction all the way through our rating day. So those are the rules of the state. So I know our high schools doing a lot of really important work to keep kids connected. The number of Regents exams were greatly reduced this year. But typically what we do in our school and many high schools across the state is we have Regents exam week where students attend by exam only, or they attend to do some individual or small group work with teachers. So school is fully in session. We know that's not what students want to hear. They like to use that time to prep for Regents exams or to wrap up coursework. But given the significance of the pandemic, the number of exams were reduced and students still need to attend school, whether in person or virtual. So we just wanted to let everyone know that those calendars have been sent out to families, posted on our website, all sorts of in all sorts of places. The next update is actually for the board. About a month ago, you watched a student-produced video sort of unveiling part of our capital project that voters approved back in May of 2018. That the punch list items are wrapping up. And so we'd like to invite the board to tour the facilities. So what will happen is by the end of the week, we'll get a sign-up sheet out to the board. We'll give you a series of different opportunities and different chunks of time during the day, in the evening, or if you're only free on the weekend, we might be able to make that work. But wanted to give you guys an opportunity to check out our facility upgrades firsthand. A lot of sweat and tears went into getting that bond developed back in 2018, and certainly getting it approved at the margin which it was. So we want to make sure that the board can go in and see everything firsthand, from new science rooms to new entryways to renovated auditoriums and the like. So look for that email and sign up when you can. And myself, Enrique, and Anthony will serve as tour guides, and we'll show you all the fantastic upgrades that normally in a normal situation you would have enjoyed by now, but given our circumstances, we have not. And lastly, the American Rescue Plan. So this was this is federal funding for school districts to use over the next number of years. A piece of that funding needs to be reserved for instructional support and programs for students as we come out of COVID. And so I'll let Margaret talk a little bit about, Margaret and Lisa talk a little bit about our so far our thinking with using American Rescue funds to support students re-entry back to school next September. And then I'll turn it over to Enrique and to Laura to talk a little bit about some long-range planning in terms of technology and infrastructure, which is little apropos for tonight, as our board president explained. So Margaret and Lisa, I'll let you talk about some of your ideas and thoughts, and then Enrique and Laura.
So as we mentioned before, I think the last time we met, we talked a little bit more about the use of these funds as well. There are categories they are designated for, but there is a chunk of the money set aside for learning loss, addressing learning loss, especially as it relates to the interruption of instruction during the pandemic. So looking toward the coming school year, we have developed in collaboration with a whole host of people, not to mention the 3 administrators that are joining us this evening, some opportunities at the elementary level. So based upon the last benchmark that is taking place right now, kids will be identified for what we're calling bridge classes, and we'll talk a lot about that in the principal's presentation as well. But basically, we've designated 2 teachers who will teach I guess, an intensive remediation period, if you will, during their school day. So they will leave their core classroom, go with 2 certified teachers, and maintain the work that they're doing on their grade level, but it will be delivered in a way more appropriate to the struggles that they're dealing with, albeit temporarily, we hope. So they'll receive some of what we would think of as AIS reading support through the use of our LLI program, and they will maintain their ELA units, both in reading and writing, so that as our kids progress during the school year, they can slide right back into the core instruction in their classroom and will have learned what they've needed to learn and not have missed or have another gap to make up. So that's one way we're looking at this. We're also looking at the opportunity to reduce class size in 3 particular sections, interestingly, 1 in each school. It just happened that way, where classes were getting close to bumping at the cut, the cap for that. And so we're able to, for 1 year, reduce that class size. And I think that's especially important as we come back from COVID as well. So we have some pieces in place. We also have some reading recovery training that we're doing with an excellent teacher who will service the first graders, who also match the requirements for that program in BV and Frank G, where the need exists. And that is a very well-researched program that has very significant benefits for our first grade readers. So we're excited to be able to put those opportunities in play. We understand that those are some of those things are opportunities that will go away once the funds have sunsetted. I'll turn it over to Lisa so she can talk a little bit about her point.
So part of this funding is also for SEL and students with disabilities. So SEL, we're really going to focus on adding another psychologist to our elementary team, so we can have more support as we transition students back. We're going to do a lot of SEL lessons and continue to build what we currently have on our plates. The other thing that we're going to do for special ed is at the high school, we're going to replicate something similar to what they have at the middle school called supplement, where our high school teacher, when we hire this person, would be someone that's going to address those COVID gaps. We have students that will sit in like a study hall. Instead of a study hall, they can go to this teacher and really work on the gaps. And I spoke with the high school counselors today about how we would identify and how we'd be able to open this up to all students with disabilities. We know as students transitioned into 9th grade, it was very difficult this year, especially for those that stayed remote for part of the year or the full year. So we want to make sure that we're not losing those kids as they roll into 10th grade, as well as the kids coming into 9th grade and any other kids at the high school. So those are the 2 ways that we are going to use the funding right now for special ed and SEL. Any questions?
All right, so the funding for learning loss, as Margaret and Lisa talked about, is a different pot of money than money for infrastructure, PPE, technology, even some school facility improvements around ventilation or what have you. Now, Enrique and Laura have been working on that side of the project, and there are some different significant rules and regulations with those as well. But why don't Laura, if you want to give a quick, or Laura and Enrique, a quick update on our thinking around technology and infrastructure.
Sure, thank you. Laura and I have been working on this issue for a while. What we're trying to do is to buy technology equipment that will last for 6 to 7 years. Like that, it's nothing that it's recurring. And we have identified several parts of technology in the district that will work like that. But like Margaret said last time, we don't want to have to use any of this money for anything that is recurring, because it's a one-time money. So technology is basically every 7 years. If you remember back in like 2014, 15, we did a 7-year bond offering for technology that it was 7 years, which was the time that that we believe it lasts for the equipment before we have to replace it. So this is the same idea. Use the money for technology that we will need down the road in 6 to 7 years. And Laura can tell you what's that technology.
I actually have good news. Some of the technology has improved that we may not need to replace it after 10 to 12 years based on the new smart panels. So traditionally it is 7 years, and some of the equipment that we're replacing already as part of our planned replacement this summer, which are a lot of the switches and things that are working in the network room, are about a 7-year plan. But I've been working with our smart board vendor, which is Tech Equipment, and that they sell smart boards. So we've had smart boards for years, and we've really been just getting by. You know, some of them are, you know, it's almost like there's Band-Aids holding them together. Over the past, I'd say 3 to 4 years, we've been slowly infusing classrooms with smart panels, which is what we have in the boardroom. We have a large version of that. So it's an interactive smart board that now it looks more like a smart TV. So that we were able to just recently install 7 in the past month into classrooms, but we've really been just struggling and fixing and repairing smart boards that we've had for years and years and years. With spare parts, we're doing the best we can. So if we're able to replace all of our smart boards with smart panels, so every single classroom has the same type of high level technology, this could potentially last us 10 to 12 years. And so I think it's a really worthy investment. It allows students and teachers to cast from their own devices to the panel. There's a lot of interaction that works with Smart Notebook Online. And those teachers that do have it love it. So I think it's a worthy investment. It's something I've been trying to figure out how to financially support as we trickle it in every year. And this would be a huge benefit to us if we can get all of them replaced one-on-one. And with that, we're able to get a lot of professional development that comes with it. Our tech coaches already have the smart panels. They can then turnkey a lot of the learning and using these new panels. And by buying in bulk, we also will be able to get a larger discount as well.
That's great. It sounds like we have found a lot of very useful things to do with this one-time money. Yep, Bill, hang on just one sec. So excellent that we're going to be able to support our kids with those smaller classes. That's always, always a concern, and much more of a concern this year. Bill, did you have a question?
Yeah, Laura, if we're going to be replacing a lot of these all at one time, what are we doing with the old equipment?
So with any old equipment, we try to sell back. We used to auction obsolete equipment. Now we can sell for parts. The smart boards, we can't get anything for them. Nobody wants them. I've asked that question. I've already looked into it, and there's nothing we can get for them.
It's really surprising, but it's amazing how fast technology becomes obsolete.
Yeah.
If that's the case, is there any way to donate it to any less fortunate schools?
Yeah, that's something we can definitely look into. it was interesting. I mean, even a fellow district needs certain chargers for Chromebooks that we are obsolete for us. So we're willing to try to figure out how to help other people. But absolutely, we can look to see where we can donate them to if possible. There are a lot of sites regarding this kind of technology because some of them do work. They do work. They're not all completely broken. The challenge with the smart boards is they have projectors and the light bulbs themselves are quite pricey. So to maintain them is expensive. So that would be the only concern because you do need the light bulb and the projection to make them work. But they can be also used as displays if plugged in. I mean, so there's options and it's worth looking into. It's a good suggestion.
Yeah, but
Thank
the
you.
backlighting on the LCDs though, like on new panels, it would just make it so much easier. You don't have to worry about shadows and
Oh yeah.
right. I mean, it's just night and day with response times, with color accuracy, easier on the kids' eyes. Like just everything is better about the new panels.
Yeah.
And maintenance and long-term maintenance.
Allie?
If we're replacing all of them this summer, do we need to look long-term 10 years when we need to replace them en masse again? Like, have we thought about that long-term financial planning?
So, I mean, that's really what happened when these smart boards were first put in before I was in this position. I believe, Enrique, it came with, was it the Smart Schools bond? You could correct me if I'm wrong. So they were funded pretty much in the same kind of time frame. And I don't like to play a guessing game, and I like to plan long term in advance. But I would say that in 10 to 12 years, I don't know if what other funding sources will come at that point. But what I was already doing with the smart boards was we already had a master sheet of inventory of all of our boards, and we had them rated on different value scales. So we already were planning on doing a slow replacement. So if we didn't have a large funding source when 10 to 12 years comes, I would continue that sort of process as we're thinking about replacement.
And who knows what the technology will even be.
Right.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, TV technology and video technology takes a good 6 to 8 years before it rotates. And right now, 8K and OLED technology and micro LED are all new technologies that are coming out, but they're not even ready for the marketplace. And right now, there are such backlogs. They're saying it's going to take years for us to deal with some of the technology backlogs. I think it would be really hard to plan for, but you're probably looking at the same costs again in 8 to 10 years.
And then, we don't know what's going to happen, but the idea would be to do again a 7 to 8 year bond to finance those, and then have exactly the same thing every 7 and 8 years. But that's the idea, that this kind of technology is obsolete after 8 years. Okay, so let's match our asset to our liability. So let's do a 7-year bond. I assume that the next person that is in my seat will do that.
And I just want to give an overview over the process. We need to have a plan of how we anticipate spending the money, but it's a plan that remains in draft form, that can be edited, that can respond to changing needs. The plan needs to be posted but not submitted. So we have been spending a lot of time over the last number of meetings. We've been reporting, yes, $1.5 million to be used over the next 3 to 4 years, but we've been getting into the fine print in terms of how we access it, how we budget it, how we identify the use to the state. So we want to make sure we meet all of the criteria so we're eligible for all of the funding, but it also remains a work in progress and a draft. So especially, that's especially important when we're talking about potential technology purchases today that may span the next few years. A lot of things could happen. Technology could be better, could be cheaper. We could, move in a different direction. So we wanted to make sure we shared with everyone our conceptual thinking at this time, because it's really hard to make those long-range technology commitments because things are changing so much.
Lisa?
Does the community input part of this happen? I know that's an important part that the state has been saying, that the community needs to have input and provide their thoughts on our plan.
Yeah, our thinking, along with many other districts, was to create a framework for what our needs are in terms of what we believe the best use of the funds are, and then to, using the idea that the plan has a level of elasticity and sort of is always in draft form, to communicate to the public, here's the money, here are the requirements. They can read the plan, certainly, like we did. But for the community to give us some feedback in terms of what our potential uses are. There may be an opportunity here. Enrique and I were discussing of maybe cost avoidance in the future, right? If we have some federal money to make some technology or technology improvements or infrastructure improvements, that's cost avoidance in the next number of years, which then frees us up to do some different things, either apply that money to fund balance, to reducing the tax levy, to something different. So we wanted to make sure we had a conceptual framework first, and then push that out to receive some feedback, and then make adjustments as we go. That's one of the struggles. I think it was maybe 2 weeks ago, the Journal News ran an article saying, amidst all of the other things happening with COVID and then the budget and not really knowing what next year would look like, we had this thrown on our lap. So we have to make sure that we're meeting the requirements to be eligible for the funding, and then receive some feedback from the community. And we can always make adjustments as long as the plan is eventually posted by July 1st. We can make some adjustments in maneuvering as we go. The other piece too is, while this is great that we have this funding, we're also wrapping up a capital improvement project where we may be able to use some of those funds for other improvements. So we really have to be strategic, and that's what all of the webinars that we participated in say. Be very strategic. If you're going to use the money for staff, make sure that it's targeted, make sure it's 1 year at a time. You don't want to create a multi-year financial commitment by using the money for the first year. So we feel a little bit better about what the state's intentions are, and that's why we're still sort of painting with a wide brush, and then we'll share that with the community and ask for some feedback.
Anybody else have questions? All right, thank you very much. Joe, did you have anything else with your superintendent's report?
Nope, that's it. Thank you.
Okay.
I just wanted to share that this Friday and Saturday, Little Shop of Horrors is performing at the high school. They're pulling off the production, and they're going to be doing it in the auditorium. So if you still want tickets, you can reach Claire Carey.
That's amazing. That's amazing they were able to pull that off. Corey, do you have anybody in that production?
Actually, I do at last minute. So Nisa has come back from college, and she's going to be doing AP. So yeah, last minute addition. So comma on down to Little Shop R's.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, so that brings us to our committee reports. Does anybody have a committee report for us? I know some of them have been pushed off. I think, Lisa, didn't you have a committee report that got pushed off, or did we do that last week with facilities? And we're going to be doing tours sometime soon too.
Yeah, I don't think there was anything specific like that. I mean, there's been some PTA meetings, but we're not really reporting on those anymore. So, yeah, no, I think the Westchester Putnam School Board Association had their annual meeting that Carol and I attended.
Yes.
And the budget was approved, and people were elected to be on the board of directors, and
including Lisa.
Thank you. And we had some nice discussions about finding the silver linings in this past school year with COVID, and some of the benefits of, or just the good things that have come out of this past year. So it was a nice discussion, and it was well attended. So.
Yeah, I agree. It was a very nice meeting. It was nice to be able to talk to some of our board colleagues around the area, and I really liked the focus to be it was a very positive focus. You know, what have we taken out of this year that we might want to continue forward? What were the silver linings to this very difficult time period? So it was really fun. One of the things that almost everybody said was they really liked having the Zoom forums. All of the schools that did Zoom forums, as we did for the budget, really thought those got very good play and very good feedback, good attendance, and would like to see those continue going forward as well. Some of the school districts really liked doing their Zoom meetings. They thought they got more FaceTime there also. So some of them are doing every other meeting, but it depends on what comes down the pike as far as regulations go, et cetera. But yeah, very worthwhile meeting. I don't have any other committee reports for me. Anybody else have anything? Okay, so that brings us to our presentations and discussion, which this week is our elementary program update.
Yeah, so if we could title this presentation, I think Lisa took the words out of my mouth, silver linings. And when we met with the 3 elementary principals who have now joined us, we really wanted to share with the board and the community what worked this year, what some of the takeaways were, and what we might be able to, what we learned this year out of necessity that might be part of our culture moving forward. We really allowed Donna and Cindy and Josh to think about their experiences this year, identify some successes, identify opportunities for improvement in terms of what COVID taught us. And then in the middle here, Margaret and Lisa will share a little bit about the elementary program for next year. There are things that we have talked about, including 10 minutes ago, but wanted to be able to provide the community with an update on next year and how we bridge that gap. Before we officially get started, I want to make sure that I commend Donna, Josh, and Cindy. We have always worked well together. And we have worked even more closely and even better this year with text messages and phone calls. I was on the phone. I was trying to think. It was either Donna or Josh. We were talking on New Year's Eve or Thanksgiving, one or the other, about COVID-related issues and quarantining and positive test results. And they have always been accessible, but they have been super accessible because we had a lot of important decisions to make and certainly a lot of important work to do during this year that was unlike any other, and we hope that it remains unlike any other going forward. So we wanted to provide the board and the community an update on opportunities or successful opportunities this year, as well as how we'll transition hopefully to a more normal environment next year. So they have divided up the slides, and we'll let Donna, Josh, and Cindy take it from here. Greg, go ahead. You can move to the next slide.
So good evening, everybody. I'm going to start, and obviously remote instruction was a huge part of this year. We had many students at the elementary level who were fully remote for the entire year. And it was also a big part of instruction for the in-person students who often had to quarantine and do a lot more work online than what they had been used to doing previously. So we just wanted to talk a little bit about what that looked like this year and how successful we felt that was. The instruction certainly evolved as the year went on, and teachers learned about new programs and new formats that they could use, such as Kami and Seesaw, and they were able to provide a lot of unique and innovative methods of instruction using these formats and really engage the kids in online learning. They were able to use programs such as Padlet and Flipgrid, where the kids could show what they were learning and share with their peers and with their teachers as they were going through different content. We also had to learn about the balance between screen time and non-screen time. And, especially for those fully remote kids, we wanted to give them opportunities to be off screen as well. So the teachers were sure to provide them with work that they could do independently off screen and then share back later with their classmates. Breakout rooms became an essential tool for teachers as they would provide, the traditional mini lesson for the whole class, and then break into small groups. And the teacher could move from breakout room to breakout room as the students worked with each other and check on their learning and provide them with feedback. We were able to add live specials a little ways into the school year for art and for music, so that those teachers were providing some live instruction and then giving the students an opportunity to have some non-screen time and do some work independently and share back later. The physical education teachers shared different resources and programs that the students could use and access online. It was a little harder to do live physical education classes, but there were resources there for the students to use and to engage with. We also provided the remote families with opportunities to pick up throughout the year different resources that they could use at home, whether it was the math workbooks or leveled readers or whiteboards, so that they could engage with the teachers from home using materials that their in-person peers were also using throughout the year. And the whiteboards became a really great tool for the remote teachers. The kids could write on their whiteboards, an answer to a question that the teacher was asking and hold it up, and the teacher could quickly glance at her screen and get feedback from everybody at the same time, get information on their learning and give them feedback all together. So that became a great tool for them. We have the Go Guardian program, which the administrators use to monitor students who might be searching inappropriate content on the internet, but the teachers were able to use it to monitor the students as they worked. So they could give an assignment and they could monitor what the student was working on, whether it was on Seesaw or Kami or just in Google Classroom, and see the progress that the students were making, and then provide them with feedback or remind them to get back on track or whatever the case would be. So that was a useful tool as well. And as we've gotten into the warmer weather, we've been finding opportunities to invite some of the remote students to the schools for different initiatives. I know at Frank G, they had some assemblies outdoors that the remote students were able to participate in. We've had a lot of virtual programs at all 3 schools that the remote students have participated in as well. We have field days coming up. Josh had his already, and I believe Donna's is coming up, and mine's next week. So we're trying to make sure all the students are included and that the remote students have experiences that are similar to those of the in-person students. Any questions before I go to the next slide? Okay, you can go to the next one, please. Thank you. So one of the takeaways was just the importance of working together, as Joe said before. It was really important for Josh and Donna and I to work together this year because we were sharing teachers. And I might have been supervising one teacher whose homeschool was Frank G, but half her students were at BV. So if issues arose or a parent called, we had to really talk to each other before deciding, who was going to address the issue and how it was going to be addressed. And although, as Joe said, we always work together and work collaboratively, this year it was even more important. And I think we did that very, very well. I also had the chance, and I know Josh and Donna did too, to get to know different teachers that we hadn't necessarily worked with before. I was assigned 4 teachers to supervise who weren't assigned to Furnace Woods, but they were remote teachers. So I got to visit their remote classrooms throughout the year and work with them and really get to know them, which was great. And all of this, collaboration will certainly provide us with a starting point as we move forward and start planning, for 2022 and the Princeton plan. So we've already made some additional connections that we may not have made if we hadn't had to go through this experience this year. So that's my part.
Any questions before we let Cindy go? All right.
Hi, everybody. How are you? Okay, so yes, this was 2 years to remember, I must admit. And you talk about flexibility in education. This was the year to do it, and communication at its fullest. And like we said, and Joe started to say, there was never a holiday or a weekend that went by where we were having some kind of communication, either with him or especially my nurse and our nurses and secretarial teams. It was 24/7 weekends discussing what we were going to do next. At a moment's call, we were getting calls regarding a case of COVID. but our role was to always limit the amount of people that were out. We didn't want to bring the whole school down. We tried to keep that as minimal as possible. So we wanted to make sure that we had clear attendance being taken at all times in the area, where the students were, master schedules constantly readily available, buses readily know who was on it, what day and how, attendance being taken on and off buses so that we could just limit the amount of kids that we needed to quarantine if we had to do it. And so much kudos to our nurses and our secretaries who I don't think they knew what a Saturday or Sunday was. They just didn't, because it was an hour at least to notify the parents and at least another hour and a half to make sure that the community knew right away that we had reached everybody and everybody else could just go about their business. So that intensity and getting the report to the Department of Health very quickly, as quickly as possible, was something that was always in the forefront. And the teaming that went into it was just amazing. And the setup that we all did to make sure we had all the information. Infinite Campus was a great help. And we also had to use some paper and pencil, because nothing like going on a trip to Rhode Island and getting that call. We got to pull over to the side of the road and start calling 25 kids, because time is not something that could stand still or wait. But we did develop a lot of attendance procedures. And not only did we mark kids absent, we wanted to know why they were absent. So what would happen is we had a TA set up, and if a student wasn't remote and wasn't on remote at the time, I would get a phone call. We didn't want the teachers to have to make the phone calls. We wanted them focused on the studying and the working with the kids hand in hand. And we would get on the phone with the parents saying, hey, where's Billy? And in some cases, I know I did, and I'm sure the other ones did, we were the wake-up calls for some of the students who had parents at the job already and needed that extra get out of the pajamas and let's get to work. So we were doing a lot of that also. But it was great because the kids got to see us and be with us. So it wasn't feeling like they were still in that place where no one really was connected except to give the work. There were times when not the whole school, most of the time, the whole school was not quarantined. So for those that were quarantined, we set up some teaching assistant and teacher time support so they could go in and check in with the students that were quarantined, let's say the bus, if their whole class wasn't, and they could run the Google slides that they needed to learn. And so those children that were on those 10 days and at one time 14 days, what an enormous amount of time, we didn't want them to lose that chunk. So what we did was we had our teachers and our TAs working together to kind of check in if 20 minutes here, 20 minutes this, that, about 3 times for 20 minutes. We had that so the kids will at least get an hour and a half if they were quarantined at home due to our reasons. If kids were quarantined due to the fact that they decided to take a trip, well, then that was a little bit of a different area. Relationships between students and parents were even stronger than ever. We all 3 principals together worked to make sure that the parents still valued that even though we were remote, this instruction was just as important as being in the classroom. And we tried to make sure that everyone understood that we're still moving forward with curriculum. We're going to do it a little different, deliver it a little different, but it's still there for us. Attending Google Classrooms were absolutely fantastic. I'm sure Josh and Cindy would agree with me because you just could pop in and pop out at any time, read a story, because you didn't have sometimes all the other things going on. And it was nice to just kind of go in and go out of classrooms 3-4 times a day and be part of the instruction, which we all love to do. Even though we've left the classroom, there's not a principal I know that doesn't love to be in the classroom. So that was an exciting part of that also. And let me tell you, the children, I know we had concerns, what's going to happen with the masks, what's going to happen with the social distancing. Everything went smoothly. We had great plans. In fact, Josh and Cindy and I ran down and worked at what are we going to do with playground equipment? What are we going to do in the playground? We don't want to be yelling at children saying, put your mask on and do this. It was always, hey guys, this is how we have to do it. This is why we had to do it. And the parents were so amazing in that they were helping us. explain it to them before they got to school. So it was a wonderful transition. We adjusted. We now have music, I know for me, right outside my office every day. I know the Erie Canal by heart and the 50 states. I cannot express how much I've learned in music class. We have picnic tables outside, so children are dining outside and enjoying the outside. They could sit on their blankets or the wonderful picnic tables that we have in all three of the buildings. So the kids are having book talks outside. It's not at all what we thought it was going to be. No one's fearful. We've actually seen a surge of children coming back and coming into the schools back and returning from remote. So that's a good feeling too, as we move for that. And we've been, like Cindy said, we've invited them in for the bubble bus and ice cream and all that kind of stuff so that they're getting that transition ready for September and all those faces are ready to go. So that's some of the improvements. Turn and talks, small groups haven't been eliminated. Absolutely not. On remote, we have our small remote groups that they can go into breakout rooms, and in classrooms, teachers have strategically placed kids in 6 feet apart where they could turn and talk. And sometimes they could shoot messages, email each other across the classroom as they kind of like blog and talk about different subjects. So that has not hindered us at all. You can go to the next slide. Like I said, and I'm sure Josh and Cynthia will also agree with me. We knew our kids. We know who they are. We've grown up with them over these past couple of years, and the relationships were critical. We met with our teachers when we were full remote to now, weekly when we were full remote, if not 3-4 times a week, just to see like who we're having problems with, who needs additional emotional support. Parents knew us. We tied them in even with teachers beyond their own teachers at this time because we knew where our hot spots were. And sometimes we had some surprises, but quickly our resource people, our psychologists and social workers met with those kids. Parents reached out to us, and we were able to always create that communication so kids didn't feel alone. And we put that out there many times. So me going into Google Classrooms, Josh and Cynthia, we could watch and see where the kids were and how they were looking also on the screen, which was a big piece to that. Technology needs, awesome. Laura really blew it out of the water. She got those computers out to us. There was no doubt. We stood there for hours and we handed them out. It was great to see the kids. We had issues. Laura corrected it right away and jumped right on. If we needed anything instructionally, Margaret was there for us. She just jumped in, got us resources upon resources and resources. And Lisa and her social workers and psychologists, we all were some phenomenal team and we were moving forward. Yes, it was 24/7. Yes, it was long hours and long days, 7 to sometimes 11 o'clock at night, 5 days a week. But you know what? It was well worth it. And it really spilled out that we are HUD and nothing takes us down. I'm done.
Thank you, Donna. I had to laugh when you said the kids were texting across the classroom because, of course,
legally.
that's no, I know that, but that's of course, our kids in the living room with their friends. They're like texting each other, so they're just using the technology the way they are now using the technology, I guess.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Any questions?
I did not have any questions, but I think you spelled it out really well. The teaching team, you guys did a phenomenal job this year, where we started out the beginning of the year, thinking back to where we were last March, April, and to where we are now with our classrooms and with the teaching and the satisfaction of the parents and the kids. Of course, everybody is really looking forward to getting back together in classrooms in a more normal situation, but the growth this year has been phenomenal.
I can only add to this. I have never seen, teachers are always reflective, but no matter how many times I could convince them that you're doing an outstanding job, all they could say is, I got to do more. I got to do more. I got to do more. And that was just such a swell to my heart. So you know what? What a bang up teams. I can't say enough about them.
Does anybody else have any questions? All right, looks like you did a great job. Josh,
Thanks.
you're up.
All right, thanks, and well done, Don and Cindy. This one is about supporting one another, and I'm going to build off Donna's last slide where it said every person. We couldn't have got through these times without every single, unit member, our office staff, the nursing staff, the kitchen, the clerical, security, TAs, aides, monitor, teachers. Everybody was working together on how to make this successful, from the safety aspects to the mental health. And, I just don't want to forget any single crew member because it was a team effort across all the schools in our district. Our mental health team did a great job working with the classrooms, lessons on, how to cope, mindfulness, how to express themselves, talk about feelings, gratitude, bully prevention strategies and skills. In the classrooms, there were still those greetings. Just like Donna said, there was still turn-in talks. We still did the, meet everybody outside, but it wasn't physical. It was from a space, air high fives, waving, and everyone made it as normal as possible. I would say Google Meets have been terrific. We've had turnouts improve for parent-teacher conferences, PTA meetings, committee meetings, whether it's our PBIS, RTI team, safety, CSE, meetings like this. We've had people from the ball field, calling in. We've had people remoting from all sorts of, whispering as they're putting their kids to bed, but still trying to hear what's going on in the schools. So that has been great. And really the next slide, Greg, if you want to go to the next one, expands on that. One of our takeaways is to continue what's been working. How do we include more people? We want to get away from the fact that the, involvement only means showing up at a PTA meeting. That's far from true. There are so many other ways you can contribute. It could be an idea. It could be something tangible. It could just be that support and relationship with the teacher back and forth. We've included students in assemblies a variety of ways. There are different ways to include people from around the world using remote, Google Meet, Zooms, and different technologies. I know pledges announcements have been done this year, and we'll continue to be creative about ways to do that. And again, we want to just continue that increased participation, involvement, and awareness of what's going on at our schools. That was it for me. Any questions on supporting one another?
Nope, I'd like to just echo again, Josh, thanks for all your hard work this year. All of those things are such wonderful, positive things. A lot of them were brought up as well at the Westchester Putnam meeting around the area, around Westchester Putnam area from many different schools. But I think we did an exceptional job, and thanks to the support. And I agree that there's been a lot more participation with some of these live streams and Zoom meetings and things. So it would be great to continue to incorporate that going forward. Anybody else have questions, comments?
I'll just jump in real quick. It was Margaret and Lisa working with Donna, Cindy, and Josh to make sure that we could create an environment for all elementary kids to come every day if they chose to. We are one of very, very, very few districts that if parents chose to send their children in every day, that we could accommodate them. And not just accommodate, meaning have them in school, but have the same teacher, certified teacher, work with them all day, every day. That was really, really, really important. And that team had to make some really tough executive decisions. And I'm talking about decisions like, okay, the reading rug's got to go, or these bookshelves, or this extra teacher desk, or you name it, in order to create space, because that was a priority from them. The priority was to try to get as many kids back into school as often as possible, while families chose a remote model. And again, that all transpired from August 7th until September 5th, because it was on August 7th. I'll remember, of course, it was on late in the week. I'm pretty certain it was a Friday when the governor said, yeah, families don't want to send their kids in, the district will have a remote model. Good luck. So this team, we did the impossible, and every school district did They did what they believed they needed to do to be successful, but this team did the impossible. We built an entirely new school system in person and virtually in the matter of weeks, and it was intense and it was stressful, and we had to drop everything frequently in order to make sure we got the job done, to make sure, as Donna said, we responded to COVID and health-related matters. It was, I felt horrible texting everyone saying, hey, you have a minute to talk? Or when they would email or call me, because wherever we were, Donna was exactly right. I was on the phone with her. She was trying to have vacation, but we stopped what we were doing and we abandoned our families and our plans in order to do the right thing. So while we hope we don't have another year like this, thank goodness we have the team that we have, and the teachers and the faculty that we have in all three schools, because this would absolutely not be possible without everyone being on the same page and understanding that we've got to do right by kids in a really tough and uncomfortable situation.
Absolutely, and that team building doesn't happen overnight. There was a good foundation there already of collaboration. So kudos to everybody. Any other comments from the board? Okay. Joe, what's next? Is that it? I saw some more, there were some more slides earlier. Were those taken away, the priorities? Ah, there we go. Joe, you're muted.
I've got two computers. Yes, that was the last slide with Cindy, Donna, and Josh. So thank you. So now we pivot to, okay, next year, right? We've talked a lot about getting back to normal and how we reintroduce students, whether they were part of our 200 students who were remote. So we'll talk a little bit about supporting kids after the pandemic, and then a little bit more on social emotional support. So I'll let Margaret take it from here.
Okay, next slide, Greg. Thanks. So we spoke briefly about this a few minutes ago when Joe was talking about the American Rescue Plan funding, which is paying for a good deal of this. Again, the Bridge program for grades 2 and 3, this is targeted at BV and Frank G, not arbitrarily, but based on student performance. So along with the 3 principles, we look at cutoffs and expectations, and we identify students who are not doing as well as we would have hoped. We attribute that to the instructional upset over the past 18 months. And recently, Donna, myself, Josh, and the teachers who will be actually delivering the program had an opportunity to meet and discuss our expectations, our instructional plan. I know that Donna and Josh will do an amazing job supporting them in the building next year, along with some of our special ed colleagues who are experts in this and will serve to guide us along. So there'll be a tremendous amount of collaboration and a lot of progress monitoring to make sure that these kiddos are getting where we would like them to be, where they need to be, and then, getting them back in mainstream instruction for the full day. They will be part of their homeroom classroom during this process. We talked about the opportunity that the funds are providing for us to reduce class sizes. It's much, much easier as a classroom teacher when you have fewer students that you can dedicate more time to. Time is the only variable that we cannot do anything with. Our day is our day, but how can we allow teachers the maximum amount of powerful instructional time during those hours? And this is one way to do that. So we have the opportunity to put those people in place for 1 year, and I do believe that it will make a difference for our kids. The professional learning continues. We've had a very robust program at elementary. It is already paying dividends and seeing fewer kids leaving the room for AIS support. So we will continue where we left off. We did continue this year, but again, there's nothing like being in person with one another. So I know that our consultants are looking forward to returning in person. They've done yeoman's work on Zoom and Google Meet. and picking up where we left off and, fine tuning some of that work. And then reading recovery, which, as I said, is a very well-researched program targeted at first graders who are at risk in reading. It is the training that is being paid for with the American Rescue Funds. The staff is already existing, so it is not new teachers. It is a teacher who stepped up and said, I would like to be able to do this for the district, and so that teacher will be trained to do so. Again, like everyone else, we really lived the saying, it takes a village, and I think we did it very well. I'm very proud of all of my colleagues. A special shout out to all of our AIS math and reading teachers that we pushed into classrooms, really without very much notice, just said, oh, you're going to be a 4th grade teacher this year. And to their credit, they went willingly and really almost to 100%. People this year, when I called or I emailed, said, what do you need me to do? And that was the only way that we could do, as Joe said, the right thing for kids, was for everybody to feel that we were in this together, however hard it was going to be, and we could get through this together as long as we maintain that attitude. So I want to thank everybody. I don't want to call you out by name because I'll absolutely forget somebody, just like the folks do in their awards acceptance speeches, and then they never hear the end of it. So everyone that we worked with this year, I have the utmost appreciation and respect for your work ethic and your contributions to the success that we've experienced, and most importantly, to the success our kids have experienced. So I think that's my only slide, and I think it's Lisa's turn now.
I have to echo and just feed off Margaret just a little bit, because this year my special ed teachers actually stepped up and they became classroom teachers as well. And for some of them, it was brand new. Others of them just jumped in. We've made some creative programs, and our parents were so flexible, and we were able to really do unique and out of the box thinking. And thank you to all the principals as well, because they were willing to think outside of the box, and they sometimes went much bigger, and we had to kind of rein them in a little. So I just, I think we just really have to commend all of our staff, because it was a long year. It is a long year, and I know they're ready for a little R&R as well. So talked a couple weeks ago about social emotional support that we've done. And of course, Josh had a great conversation. And one of the things that we're doing next year at the elementary level, so we're only focused on elementary, is we're going to continue our DBT at the elementary school. It'll be year 2. Year 1, speaking to our team and our consultant from CBC, it's been very successful. Second step, we'll reintegrate it back into the classrooms. I know Ms. Polito took a lot on this year, but she'll work collaboratively with the classroom teachers, and we'll get that up and running again in full force. Ms. Polito, again, has really done some small groups. She wants to continue the lunch groups. She has a mindful group, a friendship group, family changes, and executive functioning is something she wants to start next year for the younger kids. So continuing this and allowing kids to have an area to express concerns, to share emotions is really important. And I think one of the things that's very exciting for me at the elementary is a book club. I'm a big reader, and she really wants to do some SEL book clubs, whether it's during lunch or whether it might be that before school time or after school time when she gets a little time with the kids. For our staff, we are actually investigating the second steps for staff, which really incorporates leader training. So it's the principals getting some training on how to incorporate this into their faculty meetings as a whole group. And then throughout the month, there's some reflections in small groups, whether it's by grade level, however they choose to break it up. But that is definitely something we have been thinking about, because Dr. Wynn and Miss Marino and Miss Polito were running some like staff check-ins, virtuals, where they left some time open where people could just come in and just kind of share what they were doing. So this is something that we felt that we should investigate, and they'll talk about building trust, managing stress, advancing equity, and developing efficacy. So that's an important piece as we transition back and get our students back to school, but also getting our staff in the right frame of mind and prepping them to be successful during the school year.
All right, does anybody have any questions? Thank you, Lisa. I saw a hand raised and then it went back down before I could. Oh, Lori, there you are. Sorry.
It's me, Carol. Yes.
Yes,
I
you're
know we have
squared.
these. I know we have these. I'm sorry. I'm in the car. Everybody, I apologize. I was in exec and then I had to attend a board meeting at the school where I teach and I'm back. So my question, I have two questions. We have all these like really great programs going on right now, like Bridge and Reading Recovery, etc. Are they going to stay as the class sizes come back to normal size?
So reading recovery is not dependent on class size. Think of it as another version of AIS reading, but just targeted for first graders. The bridge classes we do expect will go away. So as we come away from closing the gaps that may have occurred during the up and down of instruction and the in and out of being in school and out of school, we hope that our kids will be back where we need them to be and we will collapse those sections.
Okay. Something different. Thank you very much, Margaret. What happens, I don't know what I have to think about what I want to ask and how I want to ask the next question. So I'll come back. My other question is, how are people supposed to do their comments this evening? Again, my apologies because I wasn't here at the beginning of public session. So Margaret, this is not for you, I guess it's for Carol. How are the public supposed to give their comments tonight? And I apologize if you have already gone over that.
I have, because of our technical issues tonight, we're only doing comments on our agenda items and they can be emailed to Carmen and she will read them, unfortunately. Any comments for non-agenda items, we're going to hold till next week. If it's something that they want the board to know urgently, they can email the board in the meanwhile, or not next week, but next meeting, I should have said, on June 16th. And at that point, at the June 16th meeting, hopefully we will be in person and hopefully they will be able to come and give their comments in person at that meeting. But again, if it's something urgent they need to contact the board about, in the meanwhile, they can do so via email.
Okay, I apologize if you already said that at the beginning. I just wanted to know.
It does not hurt to say it more than once, so I'm quite happy to reiterate.
Okay, thank you.
Lori, did you think of your other question? I know you had something else you wanted to ask.
I did not yet. I will. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. All right, so were there any other questions from the board? All right, Lori, we're back to you and then we're ready to move on to our public comment section.
Back to me for what?
I thought you had another question to ask, but if you're set, then we can go to audience comments.
Yeah, that's fine. When I think of it, I have a lot of stuff stuck on. When I think of it, I will again ask, okay?
Okay.
Thanks.
All right, so thank you everybody for presenting tonight. Again, it's great to reflect on this past year and see how far we have come. And I know this coming year will be completely different yet again. Hopefully we can provide the support all of the students need to get back up to speed, so to speak, although, you know, there's no like defined goal. Where people are is great. If we're seeing progress, that's great. Okay. So we have our audience comments on agenda items. Hang on one sec, I have to get my All right, sorry about that. So to go over the rules of engagement again, to maintain an orderly board meeting, the board has established the following guidelines for those wishing to address the board. Each speaker should sign in with the district clerk prior to commenting. Obviously, this will apply more towards our in-person meetings coming up in the future. When called, each speaker will step up to the podium and state their name and affiliation, if applicable, prior to starting their comment. Letters, petitions, or other written material should be handed to the district clerk. Each speaker, is permitted 3 minutes for their comments and must be recognized by the board president. All comments must be directed to the board president. The board will listen to comments, but will not necessarily debate or discuss items. Operational matters will be directed to school administrators for handling. The board is not permitted to address personnel or individual student matters in open session. The board may limit repetitive comments in order to give time to others wishing to speak, as well as to maintain meeting efficiency. And the board expects comments to be made without interference from the audience and in a civil manner. Of course, we are on Zoom again tonight due to technical difficulties with our internet provider. So Carmen will be unfortunately having to read any audience comments on agenda items that have been submitted. Carmen, do we have any comments this evening?
Hi, everyone. Yes, Hello, Board of Education trustees and Joe Hochreiter. I think and hope that I'm speaking on behalf of a lot of the community with the following comment. This is clearly an agenda issue. If you plan to dispute it, please provide your explanation on the record. Please excuse any typos as I am writing this on the fly, as I just found out the stunt the district has pulled by alleging that there is no internet service in the building and thus tonight's meeting is back to virtual. As I am sure you are all aware, there were plenty of people who arranged their busy schedules to come to the district office tonight to provide their comments, as tonight was finally their chance to provide their opinions on many important issues facing this district. I find it very curious that 1 hour before you were all expected to appear in person, you called off the meeting. There were no issues all day. The issues allegedly arose right before you all finally had to face the public. We are one of the only districts in this entire state who has Board of Education and administrators hiding behind their computer screens and refusing to face the community. If you are in fact having internet issues, who didn't you postpone this meeting to tomorrow night, Friday night? To that extent, I hereby request documentation made public from your technology department regarding providing evidence of your internet issues that you are having tonight. I want this read into the record. Sincerely, Sarah Rubin.
Thank you, Sarah. Believe me, this was pretty darn inconvenient for us as well to find out at 5 o'clock that we would not be able to meet the way we had planned, and to try to figure out how we were going to be able to accommodate this. Changing a Board of Ed meeting is not easy. You have to accommodate everybody's schedules. And so we decided to go ahead with our Zoom meeting as we are well rehearsed in that format. Thank you.
That was the only comment that came in tonight, Carol. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Carmen. So that brings us to our board comments and new business section. Mary Pat, you have your hand raised? Nope, sorry, that was me that had my hand raised on your square. Is anybody else, does anybody have a comment or new business? It looks like not. Joe, do you have any idea how things are going to be working at school tomorrow? Do we have any news from our internet person?
Yeah, Laura and I have been communicating as best we can. So our update is that it's beyond just a district issue, that it's not a connectivity within the district, but it very likely would have been something that took place out in the community. We were talking earlier, there's a lot of construction happening around our school community. A lot of roads are being dug up and sewers are being put in place and roads are repaved. So our technology group is going to try to first rule out that it's not a district issue, meaning connectivity or a server or any of those pieces of technology. So we're trying to determine if we are going to make a decision about in-person instruction tomorrow, to make that decision tonight and to make it really soon so families can make arrangements. This would not be like a snow day where we don't have instruction tomorrow. We would just pivot all 5 schools to the remote model, as all 5 schools have done a number of times this year. This is not a stunt. or anything of the like. We received a notification, I think it was around a few minutes after 5 o'clock this evening. I was in regular communication with the Board of Education president, our technology team, so on and so forth. We don't do stunts here. So it's very likely, Laura and I are going to give it a little longer, but it's very likely that all 5 schools next year will move to the remote model so that families have time to make those arrangements overnight and not wake up to a robocall at 6 in the morning and then have to scurry around and make last minute plans. So a decision will be imminent. We will email families. We'll also send a robocall to make sure the phones ring and people can answer their phones and hear the message. And if we do move to the remote model, we'll, as I said, send an email, put it on social media and the website. So this is a real issue, and one of the silver linings, as we heard earlier tonight, is our ability to move quickly between in-person and remote model. 2 years ago, this wouldn't be possible. 2 years ago, we would have canceled school and we would have to be discussing how we make up the instructional day. So there is a silver lining, but this is a legit technology issue that we're working on with our provider.
Yes, Alex.
So Joe, do we have to be learning from home tomorrow? Is it because the teachers can't have a connection in like the school building? They're trying to reach. I'm confused by.
Yeah,
like, how does it disrupt our regular?
So our phones aren't working. We will not have email within the district off the server. Any of our student information systems will not be operating, and all of these things that don't operate really create an unsafe environment to house 2,300 kids in school. I'll let Laura fill in some of the details. I know I talked big picture items that are infrastructure supports.
So as Joe said, late this afternoon, the internet and the phones went down. We've been working with our provider to try to get an understanding of what happened on their end. They don't understand the necessity of school opening the way we do. So we're trying to get them in tonight. So I've been actually trying to work with the custodial staff and my technology staff to get them into the high school to rule out any other issues. My tech guys have been there for hours trying to look at this and rule out any problems. But we are very confident that it's the internet provider that has something going wrong on their end. And like Joe said, we don't know if a fiber got cut somewhere or something's going on. We do know that the provider themselves, their own central office is down. So they are trying to address that before they can come out to service us. So what I've been working on is trying to confirm our connection with any of the other programs to make sure we can run remotely tomorrow. We can use Schoology, we can use Google Classroom. So those are our core programs. The specifics of the programs that we would run that authenticate within our network and our system, I'm going to be providing information to our staff and students about that in a little bit, but we can run remotely. But like Joe said, if you brought kids into school, there is no connection in the classrooms, and the phones themselves are down as well. So we don't want to bring kids in if we can't have a safe environment. So this is the last thing I expected to happen this evening. And it's, we don't want to take kids out of physical school when we work so hard to get them back in. So we're hopeful. I just got a text right now as I'm talking to you from my technician saying that we're hoping to get them to come in tonight. But again, we're at their mercy right now, so we're still waiting.
Thank you both very much for clarifying.
All right, so I think that brings us to the end of our meeting. Can I have a motion to close the meeting, please? Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Have a good evening. Our next meeting is June 16th, and we will hopefully see you there in person for those of you who want to make in-person comments, and for the board trustees who will be attending in person. Let's hope we don't have another internet power outage, anything else happen, and we will see you then. Okay, bye.